Good morning, Americans. My name is Jeff Santos. Welcome to the Jeff Santos Show. We are back here in 2019. Same bat time, same bat channel, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. We have a great program to you today. A couple of our regulars on the radio show, Elaine Cleeton, Geneseo Professor of Sociology, Geneseo College in upstate New York, and Herb Boyd, also professor at the City College in Harlem, New York, as well as the author of Black Detroit and the great African-American newspaper in Harlem for years, Amsterdam News, and a regular, both of them, on the Jeff Santos Show, heard on revolutionradionetwork.com, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about a number of issues, of course, that the Democrats taken over control of the United States House, and we'll also talk about some of the issues that are right now, including, of course, the shutdown. All this coming up right here, plus my Won't Back Down. It's a lengthy one. We'll be right back.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Hey guys, today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Give kisses. Give kisses. Look. Give kisses. Give kisses. You heard how loud that was.
I know, I
to that.
heard. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Bacon.
Please have a seat. I'll be honest. Your resume is not what I'm used to.
I know.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need a hard worker.
Good. I've got 2 part-time jobs, and I help my parents pay the bills.
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find, cultivate, and train a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. You're tuned in to Free Speech Television. I'm Jeff Santos. We're here every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time at 7 o'clock Pacific. It is great to have our next guest. She is a regular on Fridays on the Jeff Santos radio show, revolutionradionetwork.com, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. She is the Associate Professor of Sociology at Geneseo College. She joins us on Skype from New York. It's great to have Professor Elaine Cleeton with us. Professor, great to have you. How are you doing, Elaine? Happy New Year.
Hi, Jeff. It's great to be back. Happy New Year to you. I'm doing well. I'm sort of enjoying the new Congress much more.
We're going to get into that in a second. But I want to talk to you about women in politics. A lot has been going on. We aired this just several days before Sunday, our airtime in the mornings. And just a couple of days ago, of course, Congress came in, and Elizabeth Warren decided to put her hat in the ring and then traveled to Iowa, where she found a lot of support and also found a lot of people asking her about her heritage and so forth, and whether or not women can be president, and comparisons with Hillary Clinton, yada, yada, yada. So talk to me about how women are perceived in the political level. We'll get into Ms. Ocasio-Cortez a little bit later in this segment. But, let's start with Elizabeth Warren. This is not the first time a woman has run for president. We all know what happened in 2016. But have the mainstream media learned any lessons about how to treat a woman who is running? Do they look at her differently than Hillary Clinton? What do we expect? What do you expect as somebody who looks at the culture and how we have progressed or degressed?
I don't think the mainstream media has made a lot of progress. And as long as we have Fox TV with a couch full of blonde, leggy women drawing in the audience because of their distinguished looks, we haven't made much progress. And when you turn to free speech and you find people who look real and look like themselves, the one being Democracy Now! She's distinguished. I'm thinking of the host of Democracy Now!
Amy Goodman, sure.
Yes, and Amy Goodman, and has her gray hair and has her unmade up face. That's the rarity. That's not the norm. And we've been kicking women out of broadcasting, remember, for years when they're too old to be there. So no, I don't think there's a lot of progress. We wouldn't be thinking about how strange it is for women to run. We wouldn't be asking them if they can. We wouldn't be going in this direction if we had changed. And furthermore, given that we elected a person totally unqualified to be president, we have lowered the bar so much. How can we possibly argue against women running for a political office, including the highest in the land? There's no excuse. But then we know the media has barely started to call Trump on his mistakes, on his lies, on his errors, on his expansion of the truth in order to support his own needs. We're just starting to see that in the press. So if we're only just starting to see that, we can't be expecting them to understand women as candidates. But women are finding their way, and they're learning to stand up to every challenge, right? They're prepared for the issues that are raised. And the first African-American woman who ran for president, she said that you had to know the answers in advance. And she was campaigning for Jesse Jackson. And Shirley Chisholm. And she said, she was asked, how could he possibly run, given he had never run for office? And then she named all the presidents who had never run for office prior to being elected to being president. So Shirley Chisholm is the model, who is prepared and knows how to answer the questions. And Elizabeth Warren has answers to the questions. And she will be challenged and she will be contradicted by other candidates running in the Democratic primary. But what we learn from that is the candidates become stronger and better. All these bloviating pundits who are saying, oh, the Democratic Party is a mess and they don't know what their message is.
Right.
And there's 30 people running for office. It's a disaster. And Trump has his campaign ready to go. He's raised his money. He's organized. He knows what to do. Surely they can't find a candidate who can win against Trump. That is just filling the airwaves with nonsense.
Well, there's no doubt. We're talking with Professor Elaine Cleeton, Geneseo College, here on the Jeff Santos Show, here on Free Speech TV. You know, the concern that I have as a progressive and being here in Massachusetts, and I've interviewed Senator Warren many times, is that when she stays to the issues, I think that she is as good as any progressive candidate out there. And I just hope that she doesn't try to sort of mainstream her too much, because that I think will be the downfall of her in a sense. I noticed in one of the campaign commercials that she decided to reach out and get a beer and drank the beer on video. Now, you know, I remember when Hillary Clinton was doing shots in 2008. I know that there is a double standard here, but I don't think that that's really going to help, you know, a one-off of somebody. I mean, it's one thing if she normally grabs a beer every night at 10 o'clock, that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. But I just wonder if this sort of, you know, try to appeal to this, you know, fictitious person who's going to say, oh, well, I can have a beer with her since she drinks beer. your thoughts about how women, yes, you have to play the game if you want to be, a national candidate, but some of it is just, kind of phooey.
Yes. Well, remember, advisors often are wrong.
Yes.
And those,
times.
right. And those advisors who do the focus groups and say, this is the way you have to go, are mostly wrong. And
many of them are men, by the way.
Yes, many of them are. So there are those errors that are made. And what I love is to go back to Teddy Roosevelt, because I think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez references Teddy Roosevelt. I was reading about him with regard to Rashida Tlaib, because he said, look, when you're learning to run and you're learning to run a country, you will make errors, you will make mistakes. And if you don't make any, you're not doing your job. And you move on from those mistakes and errors. And I think that's the way to think about that. The beer may have been really silly. And if they're good enough, they'll get some feedback that says, pull that one off the air. Right. And the way you connect with everyday people is to meet everyday people. Right. The videos are not so important anymore. It's getting out there, going door to door. I mean, it's massive door to door work, as we learned from all these 40 Democrats who were just elected to the Congress. So, mistakes, yes, they're always made. And we go after them because that feeds the news for 24 hours, gives them something to talk about. But, as you said, Warren, when she's on point, she knows what she's talking about. She was criticized for how she understands international affairs this weekend and how she's presenting in that arena. So she'll she'll bone up on that. She'll get that together. And I'm not even arguing on behalf of Warren, but I'm saying that she'll be a fine candidate. As you said, look how she won in Massachusetts and against all odds when she first ran for senator from Massachusetts. So she'll be a very strong candidate, and she'll make everyone else very strong by virtue of the debates and by virtue of the interaction with the other candidates.
Right.
And so we'll discover what is good about each of them and what we like and what we want to represent us as a Democratic party.
We're speaking with Elaine Cleeton here on the Jeff Santos Show. Talk to me a little bit about how concerned you might be that as women, run not only for office at the federal level, but even in the lower level, of whether or not they are going to be castigated as not ready for prime time, too radical, too liberal, as Alexandria Cortez was last night in an interview on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper, saying that, are you a radical? Are you thinking that these things are going to be ridiculous when her ideas of a Green New Deal and pushing for, ending of fossil fuels and the financing of people on fossil fuels in the Green New Deal. I'm wondering, is it going to be stick to your values, whether you are a woman or a man, or try to sort of, find the middle of the road? Because as I think Jim Hightower, who has been on this show, the former Texas Agricultural Commissioner, said, the only thing in the middle of the road is yellow lines and dead armadillos, which I tend to agree with. So talk to me about that, Elaine.
Well, I'm convinced that there are people who are brilliant who discover what is strong about these candidates. So as I was reading the opinion editorials over the weekend in response to Ocasio's film, and then to her, I loved her dance to war. I have to admit that it was fantastic. She has thick skin. She has Pelosi skin. That Ocasio-Cortez is ready to take it all on. But what I was thinking about is that there were two opinion editorials that were interesting to me. One was Maureen Dowd, and she went on in this lovely, beautiful writing that is her strength about how delightful this was, this wonderful dance and this exuberance, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the last two paragraphs, she sort of became the schoolmarm and pointed her finger at these new Democrats and said, but you better be careful. If you go too far, don't lean out too far over your skis. I don't know if Ocasio-Cortez ever skied. You know, first metaphor is disgusting. Right. But then Paul Krugman writes about her on the same day, and he says, you know, people are saying she's a crazy radical when she says we should tax the wealthy between 70 and 80%. And then he gives the history of when we taxed the wealthy between 70 and 80% from World War II into the 80s, and how that was our biggest growth period economically as a nation. And he says she's been talking with the most brilliant economists. She understands this. Our president, by contrast, is advised by idiots who say that you can give all the money to the wealthy and it's going to drain down on us. It's just going to drip down on us and we're going to be enriched by their wealth. Completely absurd, and as Krugman says, absolutely unfounded in the literature and the research. So we need not the Maureen Dowds who point their fingers. We need the Paul Krugmans who say, this is exactly the way we should understand the economy. She's not being radical. She's being American, and this is our history. Let's support her.
Well said. We're talking with Elaine Cleeton, professor of sociology at Geneseo College in upstate New York, here on the Jeff Santos Show on Free Speech TV. So when you look at what happened, and the right wing is got their, you know what, up in a toozy. They have gone after with different bloggers following her, you know, what kind of clothes she wears, etc. And, you know, I thought her response last night is that, you know, when these folks are following me and putting a camera on my behind, I don't see them putting it on the behind of Steny Hoyer. And I thought that was a great line, because this is going to be an issue now as more younger women, she's 29, obviously young, attractive. You know, if that's the case, are we going to have, you know, video cameras following all the hot women on the Democratic side, or for that matter, on the Republican side? Is this what we're going to come down to in the video age, on the social media age?
And looking for some evidence that they're sexually active. Let's get that information.
Oh, yes.
You know what I love is that she did this video when she was in college.
Right.
This wonderful video. I was showing this movie to my youth group when I was associate pastor in the early 80s with their parents' consent, because the parents said, the language is very bad in that movie. They swear in that movie. Why do they swear so much? So isn't it interesting that that movie is associated with swearing that now we would just overlook? So here's this movie that she is part of, and that they want to follow her. She wasn't paid $135,000 to not tell that she had sex with someone. She didn't dance strip her way through college. All they got on her was the most delightful, lovely piece of video that shows 5 or 6 young people having a wonderful time in college. Aren't we envious? Isn't that who we want to be? Totally, delightful. It was rated PG. You know, anybody could watch that. So yes, they'll look and they'll make her life miserable. That's what I think about. It's how she'll have no private life. That whatever happens privately will become public and will be used against her. But I do want to just say that we're going to try to make them be held accountable for everything they say. With Rashida Tlaib, we tried to make her explain what happened. She says, I said what I said. And the former Prime Minister of Canada joined her and said, yes, impeach the mother effer. So she's not alone. And remember that when Mitt Romney talked about the 47% who were too lazy to do anything, and that was why there was trouble in the country. And then he lied about what he said, and then he lied again, and then he made up a story. These young women are not lying. And they will say, yes, I did that. Yes, that's my video. Yes, I said impeach the mother effer. That's who they are. So when people say it straight and don't lie their way out of it, there's nothing you can do. They're better campaigners and better politicians than many we've had in a long time.
Just a minute or two here, Elaine. Do you look at the fact that I think it was Senator Manchin of West Virginia, one of the more conservatives, not the most conservative Democrat, sort of saying, oh, well, you shouldn't say that, and that's not proper and all that. I understand if people want to avoid using the F word, understandably, but really, I would really say that this is the only question you have for me, Mr. Reporter. That to me is probably a better example of a better response. Your thoughts there?
I agree that the person always has to turn it back to the issues and focus on the issues. And I think these are strong, intellectual politicians who can do that and understand when they're being distracted. That's what we have come to expect of ourselves in this Me Too age. The Me Too age is still in place. It's still operating. Glenn Close won the Golden Globe for Professional Wife and talked about how it's time for women to be more than caregivers, to allow us to be creative and make our contributions. And so everybody's talking about this. There's great progress being made. I'm certain of it. And given that the model in the White House swears his effing head off when he brings the whole team together. He spent 15 minutes, I think, this week swearing and just going on and on about nothing before the meeting began. And that was with the people from Congress. So all those people who accuse these women of things that are untoward are the worst offenders. Let's acknowledge it. Let's be clear. This is irrelevant, right? It doesn't speak to the heart of the matter, nor does it represent the candidate or the politician.
Elaine Cleeton, always great to catch up with you. Professor of Geneseo College, again, contributor to the Jeff Santos radio show on Fridays and the 3 to 6 p.m. Show. And we look forward to talking to you then. Elaine, Happy New Year once again. Thank you for joining us today.
It was a pleasure, Jeff. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We'll be right back after this PSA. You are indeed watching Free Speech TV and the Jeff Santos Show.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
French fries. Finding best potatoes.
No!
Russet. Fingerling. Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Please have a seat. I'll be honest. Your resume is not what I'm used to.
I know.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need a hard worker.
Good. I've got 2 part-time jobs and to help my parents pay the bills.
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. but you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find, cultivate, and train a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I had something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back. It is our section that we continue from 2018 called Won't Back Down. It's my segment of my opinions on where the Democratic Party, the progressive movement, and what I view as the important things in our society today. Well, we are just a few days into 2019, and here is my perspective upon where the Democratic Party, the progressive movement, should be going and should be thinking. Well, I was very excited to see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talk about the Green New Deal. I have been talking about a blue-green alliance that would basically push the envelope on what the Green New Deal is about. It's about creating green jobs at green wages that will be able to make the average person, regardless of color, regardless of educational background, regardless of how much money you have in your bank account, to be able to have a good job at a good wage. And they are taking the world, and I call myself a 21st century FDR liberal. I consider what FDR did with the WPA in the 1930s. He built a whole slew of buildings between the Conservation Corps and the WPA. We're talking about the dams in California, the Nashville Water Authority. We're talking about the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building. All of them were involved in some form or shape using federal government dollars. And this, to me, is where we need to go on solar and wind and all the pieces that reduce the carbon footprint in this country. Put more money into rail. You take cars off the road, that reduces the carbon footprint. Those create jobs. You can use the private sector on occasion, but the government has to be the focus. You cannot do this for a profit basis only. This is what has happened over the last 40 years. The Reagan administration, followed by the Bush administration, followed by the Clinton administration, followed by the second Bush administration, and frankly, followed by Obama, which was surprising, but not surprising because the Republicans, after 2 years, took over the House and pretty much ran the government in terms of where we would invest. So it's not surprising that is where we are. And of course, the last 2 years with Trump, the ultimate capitalist who could care less about the average person. We see that in the government shutdown right now. So I'm hoping that between the Green New Deal, between Medicare for All, which the Democrats have at the very least brought up into the House, so they'll have hearings. I'm a little frustrated where Nancy Pelosi is in terms of not allowing both Medicare for All to take the next steps and the Green New Deal to take next steps, to have, subpoena power as an example. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who of course was a Bernie Sanders advocate and was somebody who, in my view, was really from day one spot on her issues of economic inequality, of taxing the rich, of being able to coming back, talking about taxing the rich, to the Roosevelt era, where people were taxed at 70, 80, 90%. And nobody was complaining because the economy was at the best. Post-World War II, the best situation. Granted, the rest of the world was on its knees after World War II, particularly our friends in Europe. But the fact is that that's how we were growing, and nobody was complaining. It was the Powell Doctrine in the 1970s and the Republicans, and again, the Reagan Revolution, that has become more monopolies, less small businesses, more corporations controlling everything. We see this today with Amazon.com, with all the different corporations. Is no longer Main Street America with the hardware store and every place else. It's a much different world than it was 40, 50 years ago. So what I am hoping for in 2019 is to think a little bit about going backwards. Yes, that's obviously been connected with Donald Trump, the 1950s, all-white world, leave it to Beaver. But what I'm saying is that there were a lot of things that were going on, say from 1933, the first year of FDR, to about 1966, the end of really the Medicare, the New Deal, the 33 years, if you might, of Medicare and Medicaid, civil rights and voting rights. Eisenhower, a Republican really with Democratic values, built the highway system around the country. We desegregated the military in 1948. Jackie Robinson, integrated baseball in 1947. A lot of things happened that were good for America, good for our society, good for the world. And then Vietnam came, and we have gone into, we can't spend this amount of money because it's too expensive, or we got to defend at every cost. The military-industrial complex, folks, we have to simply be very careful here. The amount of money that we put in to the military-industrial complex is outrageous. There's no country that's even close to us. And what do we get for it? More conflicts in the Middle East? What does that do for the average person in Kansas or in Massachusetts or in California? We have to seriously consider that. And I'm glad to see that whether we're talking about Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, and frankly, I'm glad to see that at the very least there is some in the Republican Party, and Donald Trump, in his most incomprehensible and, once again, reckless way, decided to get out of Syria. And now they're thinking about, keeping the troops there even longer. But the fact is, at least we're talking about the idea of not continually keeping ourselves in areas of harm and causing more conflict, not only in the region, but obviously for a lot of Americans who, pick up a weapon and are fighting for this country. So all of these things are critical, folks. And I will say this, if you are looking for people who are going to push the agenda, look at the progressives who are thinking about running for president. You look at Bernie Sanders, you look at Elizabeth Warren, you look at Sherrod Brown, Miss Gabbard from Hawaii, Mr. Bullock from Montana. All of these folks have talked about issues from campaign finance reform to the idea of protecting our communities, particularly in the Midwest. That's Sherrod Brown's issue, to, of course, Medicare for All with Bernie Sanders, to banking reform with Elizabeth Warren, to pulling troops out of Syria and a better policy from the Iraq veteran Miss Gabbard of Hawaii. So that's where we need to look for. In my view, we simply cannot just go as status quo. Joe Biden is a good man. I've interviewed him a number of times in other platforms. But really, if America wants to change, they're going to need more than Vice President Biden. And you're going to need to have progressive candidates who are going to move the agenda. And you don't necessarily have to be die-in-the-wool progressive. There are a lot of people who may be considered more centrist. Sherrod Brown probably fits that category too, that I want to hear from. And they're the ones, Mr. Bullock in Montana, are the ones that are going to have to push the envelope here. And we have a great opportunity over the next 2 years to talk about what is important to America. What are the issues that are important? And frankly, there are too many people that just think about replacing Trump with anybody. I understand that. Anybody but Trump, sure. But what does that get us when it comes to better health care? What does that get us when it comes to minimum wage? What does that get us when it comes to reducing the carbon footprint and reducing the military footprint? You're going to need champions, and you're going to need to push the American people, to push the elected leaders to get these things done. It's not just going to be, Trump will be gone. And what will happen after then? You know, is Mike Pence, who may be the caretaker for the 2 years or 1 year left? Or what if it's a corporate or conservative Democrat who can't really motivate enough people and therefore has a divided House or Senate, and we go back to square one? It's got to be a better and it's got to be a bigger, and I'm hoping more progressive agenda in 2019 and 2020. There are a lot of obstacles, folks, but we urge you to stay right here at Free Speech TV. There are a lot of great programs, a lot of great hosts, with a lot of great guests that will help us push this agenda. I certainly will not back down. And I will tell you this right now, folks. We have an opportunity in these next 2 years to rebuild this country. And I won't back down from that goal. My name is Jeff Santos, and you are watching Free Speech TV.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Hey guys, today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Give kisses. Give kisses. Look. Give kisses. Give kisses. You heard how loud that was.
I know, I heard.
That.
I heard. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Bacon.
Please have a seat. I'll be honest. Your resume is not what I'm used to.
I know.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need a hard worker.
Good. I've got 2 part-time jobs and to help my parents pay the bills.
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find, cultivate, and train a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Welcome back. You're tuned in to Free Speech TV. This is the Jeff Santos Show. We are here on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 7 o'clock Pacific. Our next guest is a incredible journalist. He is a regular on the Jeff Santos Show as well. In fact, Elaine Cleeton said to say hello. It is our privilege to get the author of the great book, Black Detroit. Check it out on Amazon.com. He is a professor at City College in Harlem, New York. He's also a columnist for the Amsterdam News and a contributor every Thursday on the Jeff Santos Show. It's great to have Herb Boyd on the Free Speech TV show. It's great to have you on TV, Herb. How are you?
I'm fine. We got to do this live for you, too, you know?
We do indeed. We got to get you in that studio there in Manhattan. Well, welcome to the program. Happy New Year.
To you, Jeff.
Yeah, lots has changed in terms of the Congress, but Mr. Trump is still Mr. Trump, and it seems like it's only getting worse from the Orange Julius. What's your take from your perch there in New York?
There's no doubt about it. You know, each time you think that he could not be more despicable, he manages to transcend. He manages to outdo himself. And I think it's very wise. I think one of the parting shots of a column I read just recently was that don't interfere with him. Let him keep going just as he's doing it. Let him go ahead. He's going to go ahead eventually be, I'm going to call him Humpty Trumpty. He will fall off that wall.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, he's going to fall off, maybe break a few bones.
And all the king's horses and king's men will not put him back together again. But he's just standing by that wall or standing on that wall. And I think he's holding the nation hostage. And his claim the other day, Jeff, was the epitome of absurdities in saying that all of these workers who cannot get back to work, government employees, you know, they're all a part of his base. They're all with him.
Exactly.
You know, I say, what? Come on.
Well, I saw something this morning on one of the networks, cable networks, that you know, said that, look, I voted for him as a fire department official in Iowa. But, you know, this idea of government by tweet, you know, is insane. And I'm paraphrasing, but I think that a lot of people who might have voted for him in November of 2016 are coming to a realization that it's not only a clown, but it's an incompetent clown. You know, it's somebody who decides, you know, he's going to be a juggler and all the glass falls on the guy's head. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, he can't form a government. He's got people being fired left and right. People are saying that Mr. Bolton, who is, you know, this is a guy who said he wanted to cut off the floors of the UN, you know, wants war all the time. You know, he's supposedly the sane one there. My God, if that's the case, we are in desperate times. I don't know. I just think that this is only going to come down to a massive collapse. And we may have never seen anything like this, Herb, in our history. I mean, you know, you can say all you want about Nixon, but I have never seen somebody, and this could be a very, very dark year in the United States history. Your thoughts?
No doubt about it. You might use the word like unprecedented.
Yes.
In both senses of the word, you know, because he's unfit for the office. I mean, he's almost systematically, and from one tweet to another, is that he's shown us that he's incapable of being our chief strategist, chief of state, chief president. You know, he cannot be the helmsman of our ship of state. And he's like he's taken us over the cliff in so many different ways. You know. So what we can do, and I think it's the midterms was probably the most dramatic elements we had in recent political history, and that things augur well as we move into seeing all of these candidates now, Democrats in particular, lining up, for the 2020 race. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is already out to shoot.
Right.
It seems like they're pushing Joe Biden closer and closer. The polls suggest that he's probably the only candidate out there that could really give Trump a run for his money.
Well, I think there are more out there, but I hear you.
Yeah, but so what happens is that I'm hoping that the midterms are an indication, some kind of barometer of what's going to happen in 2020. We need to sustain that momentum, and I think all of the new 102, new women in Congress, that is such a dramatic development, and all these these new voices. I was just checking out Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was on 60 Minutes last night. I don't know if you caught that, Jeff.
I did indeed, and I love it. Why don't they follow Steny Hoyer's backside?
Mm-hmm. I think she kind of nailed him in so many different ways. She could have gone further, but I think she said just enough because, you have to be very careful in what you say on 60 Minutes and in any one of these media outlets because they can take it and spin it in so many ways that she's gotten in trouble already and maybe saying too much. And, of course, the congresswoman from Michigan, she's been even more outspoken.
Well, she tells it like it is. We're talking with Herb Boyd, a great columnist.
Yes, indeed.
For the Amsterdam News here on the Jeff Santos Show. Herb, one of the things that has happened, obviously, since the Democrats took over Congress, has been the idea of pushing a lot of progressive ideas. And one of them that we've talked about on this show for years now is the issue of voting rights. The constitutional amendment, right to vote, that our good friend Frank Watkins of Rainbow Push has spoken about in the past. There are a number of issues, but the first piece of legislation, give credit to Nancy Pelosi and company, is H.R. 1, is about voting reform. Now, no illusions here. Mr. Trump and Mr. McConnell in the Republican House are not going to sign on to this. But I think that we're pushing the envelope here for 2020. I believe it's tomorrow as we tape here on Monday before the Sunday show, that the referendum to allow felons to vote will become effective tomorrow. Of course, the Florida Governor DeSantis, a hand-pointed friend of Mr. Trump, is going to try to block it in Florida. But the fact is that, this is a good thing. Talk to me about this, because this is at the center of the civil rights community. This is at the, I heard John Lewis talk about it the other day. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's a very, very critical development and one that could really help the whole 2020 elections, because you're talking about thousands and thousands of people who, from state to state, it's always a different kind of, legislation that they have in terms of the possibility and the participation of the formerly incarcerated.
Right.
And of course, Florida, when you start talking about the numbers that are off the rolls down there,
it's in the millions.
Been critical in two past elections. Could have turned the tide and make a swing state like Florida, very critical player in determining the outcome of an election. So we'll see how that plays out. It's almost like the first step legislation that was just passed. That particular act, it's just a first step in terms of criminal justice reform in this country, which is another element in terms of how we deal with mass incarceration that's occurring in this nation. And it's good to see that 2 or 3 of these new Congress people are certainly addressing these issues, beginning to talk about the possibilities of turning the page on a number of these issues that deny them participation in full democratic rights. And of course, we have a so-called president who has, from moment to moment, just abrogated just elements of constitutional and democratic rights. And all of this here kind of swings back. We need to get rid of the Electoral College, but to say, because all of this here is academic, and we don't change that Electoral College and get those swing states, get Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio and, of course, Florida, we got to go ahead and do a lot more in terms of the DNC and its organizational thrust, and get these new voters, because what the midterm suggests, Jeff, is that a tremendous number, potentially these new voters coming in can push it up almost 10%. I mean, that should be a tremendous turnout, and any kind of large turnout favors Democrats in this country.
There's no doubt, and of course you have to be able to have people be inspired. We can't have milquetoast candidates at the top of the ticket either. You know, because that's not going to fly very much for these 25-year-olds that are looking for somebody to inspire them and take care of their futures. We're talking with Herb Boyd here on the Jeff Santos Show. Let me ask you finally, do you sense that we're going to see a heavy African-American turnout in 2020, regardless if there is a candidate at the top? I have a feeling that one of the two people on the ticket will be a person of color and maybe a female. Your thoughts on that as we look ahead to 2020?
I think, ideally, if they're saying that the polls seem to suggest that a 76-year-old white man seem to be out front at this point, I think a woman, and particularly a woman of color, would be a very, very interesting potential candidacy for the Democrats, because then you would cover a whole lot of bases there. You're talking about the popularity, particularly of a Joe Biden, who has, African Americans, really seem to favor him. I mean, they have identified with him, but of course it's so early in terms of these candidates coming forth, and so name recognition is obviously a key factor. Some of the other candidates who haven't jumped into this race at all, and maybe I was thinking about, Castro, Julian Castro, in terms of the Hispanic vote out there, or the whole western part of the country, which we need to make sure we move into what you call the outer suburbs, of the metropolitan areas too, and into that working class base that seem to be, as Trump suggests, they have been neglected and ignored, and whether we can make some clout there. But I think the working class, in the African-American vote, the Hispanic vote, the women's vote, the older vote in this country, all are critical votes is going to have to cohere and come together in such a way that it can be a decisive turn in terms of the 2020 elections. So all of these means a lot of stuff on the table, Jeff.
No doubt. Herb Boyd, we appreciate it. It's great to have you on. We look forward to our Thursday call on the radio on RevolutionRadioNetwork.com. Happy New Year, sir. Great to have you on.
Good ahead, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back after this PSA.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back. Well, we've run out of time, folks. We'll be back next week with more guests, including our good friend, Representative Ro Khanna of California will be joining us. I want to thank both Herb Boyd and Elaine Cleeton. Thank you for viewing us today. If you have any questions, you can email me, jeff@revolutionboston.com. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show. I want to thank Adam Stone and Erica Jones for producing this broadcast. And once again, thank you for watching us. My name is Jeff Santos, and it's my time to say, I gotta go.